DDT and Nesting Birds by Philip Austin, Lou Kalki, and Michael Kello.
What is DDT? DDT was the first major synthetic insecticide used widespread across the world starting in the 1840s after the end of World War II. It was seen as a great advancement in technology, its ability to severely decrease insect populations in areas it was used in. It was also very cheap to use and manufacture. Two of its major uses were for combating insect-borne diseases and for combating insects that destroyed crops and harmed livestock. The military would use it to debug operation camps and to spray down troops to kill any parasites on them, and as a form of bug spray. DDT would be used to fight many insect-borne diseases like malaria and typhus through spraying affected areas and houses to kill any bugs carrying the disease. Farmers would use it to spray on their crops and livestock to kill caterpillars, grasshoppers, locusts, flies, beetles, ticks, etc. that were harmful to the crops and livestock. It was even sold for commercial use, with it being used as a form of bug killer in households. The large-scale use would cause the insecticide to seep into the ecosystem through a variety of ways, like runoff from farms into streams, the spraying of forests where insect-borne diseases were reported, and its use of debugging public parks and neighborhoods. In fact, the picture on the bottom of the slide is of a DDT spraying car used to debug neighborhoods and other public areas. Because of its widespread use, many insects gained a resistance to the insecticide over time. It would be brought to the government's attention when Rachel Carson published her book Silent Spring, which took note of impacts the pesticide was having on the ecosystem. Soon after, the insecticide would be banned from the US after the evidence found were proven accurate, and when other evidence also found that the insecticide was less effective. Over time, we would find just how extensive the damages would be.
There are many ways that DDT affected nesting birds in America. Firstly, the lethal impact of DDT on birds was first noted in the late 1950s when spraying DDT was used to control the beetles that carried the Dutch elm disease in and around Michigan. This led to the death of many nesting birds in and near Michigan, including our state bird, the robin. Not only was DDT used near Michigan, but it was also used throughout the entire country. And many other nesting birds, including bald eagles, hawks, falcons, and condors, were all affected around the country as a result of the spraying of the pesticide. Secondly, DDT was found to thin eggshells by affecting the bird's ability to produce and use calcium for their eggs. DDT interfered with the reproductive cycle of the birds, as the pesticide would build up in the bodies as predatory birds ate birds that in turn had eaten insects and plants contaminated with the chemicals. The result was diminished fertility and eggs with shells so thin that they broke under their parents' weight while incubating. Finally, the way DDT affected the food chain was by passing up through the food chain from insects to small birds, from small birds to birds of prey like hawks and bald eagles. The pesticide would accumulate in the birds of prey, giving them a large amount of DDT, and in high concentrations, the DDT would cause weakness in the shells of their eggs, thus leading to a reduction in their population and an explosion in the population of those being preyed on by the birds.
The ongoing struggle to remove DDT. Once the bad effects of DDT were realized, it was swiftly banned in 1972. Soon after, the animals started to recover and the effects of DDT are almost wiped away. The problem is that DDT introduced the US to insecticides, and they started to cause their own problems similar to what DDT did. Recently, DDT has become an issue in the form of dicophol, the result of adding a hydroxide ion to each molecule of DDT. While the disulfol is okay to use, not all of the disulfol molecules have the one hydroxide ion in it, causing there to have 15% of the disulfol to be DDT. DDT is also still used today illegally in certain parts of the US. This picture shows a DDT molecule and how it becomes cyclable.